Meher, hello. Madhvi, I'll share the screen for you. Madhvi? Madhvi?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, would like you to start again from
Yeah.
the basic. Right. Okay. Start again.
Yeah. Okay. Sir, should I share this screen because this is not
No,
updated.
I'm doing the sharing for you. I'm doing the sharing. You show me the screen. Okay. You start from level 0, Madhvi. Okay.
Okay.
So, welcome everyone. We start with our session on, would say, reporting over, and we have Madhvi Devdar with us to take up the session. Welcome, Madhvi.
Yes, sir. Yeah, just to recap, what we have seen is MC has notified the standard in March 19, effective from 1/4/2019, and for final how crucial this standard is. And we were on to the we completed the scope and we were on to the transitional provisions. So can you just go ahead with the slide?
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
go here.
Yeah, previous one, sir.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
ma'am.
transiting from old gap to this standard, or from Indus 17 to this standard, some options are available. So we were covering that, and some leading corporates, what policies they, what approaches they are having, we were just discussing. We saw Asian Paints having full retrospective approach. Then Tata Capital Services, what they are doing on 1/4/2019, whatever is difference between the ROU asset and lease liability, that is part that is credited or debited to the retained earnings. And so the comparatives are not available because in previous year you will see the rent expenditure only. 1819 is not restated in that case. So, and third approach is on the date of balance sheet, whatever lease liability you are having, you have the ROU asset of that equal amount, and in the remaining period of the lease, the ROUs amortized or depreciated equally, means on straight line basis or more. Hello.
Yeah, Madhvi, I'll put up the latest PPT just been shared. Yeah, Madhvi, Madhvi, Madhvi.
Yes, sir. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Now it's fine. Continue.
Yeah. So we saw this transition approach. Then we'll go to the next slides.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically this is a recognition and measurement thing. How we recognize the right of use and lease liability in the books. It is basically the lease payments over the period are accounted at amortized at the present value, and the entry is a right of use to lease liability, and ROU asset is depreciated on straight line basis, and the lease liabilities finance cost is it is unwinding of interest is done, and rent payments are accounted. So this is the basics accounting. So here new asset and liabilities are coming into the books. Previously it was only rent expenditure. So you are recognize the asset and liabilities created out of your lease commitment through the contracts, lease contracts, over the period of 10 years, maybe 3 years, 5 years, or whatever, in the books. So all liabilities and assets are coming into the books. This is the major, as explained by the Santosh. Even if you have the lease, the commitments towards lease, it was not coming in the books. What was coming in the books only, it was only current year expenditure. So these are the new presentation by way of lease liability. So as to on asset side, you have the right to use the asset for that period, and subsequent measurement is accounting the depreciation, accounting finance cost on lease liabilities. So next one. And basically this accounting is having the drastic change in the books of lessees. As far as lessor is concerned, there are no major changes in the books of lessor. So this is a presentation in the balance sheet. You have, after the property, plant and equipment, you have right of use asset separately disclosed. Then you have lease liability separately disclosed into current and non-current. Then you have interest depreciation on ROU, interest expenses on financial liability, lease liabilities. And as we have seen in previous slides of scope, there is a exemption given for short-term lease, which is within 12 months, which is maturing within 12 months. Or low value asset is basically so as to say small asset like laptops, office furniture, etc. So for this asset, again the accounting will be done as per the previous accounting only, that rent expenditure we will be accounting. So it will have a impact on cash flow also. So lease payments are normally considered in the financing activities. Interest on this is should be consistent with policy election index 7, that is in investment activities, operating activities or financing activities. And for new leases, wherever the disclosure is non-cash expenditure, like suppose any fair value element is there in this, so we have to disclose it separately as per the cash flow standard. So going further, see what happens normally when we have implementing or even auditing any standard, we give a lot of importance, we deploy a lot of time and resources for recognition and measurement principles. But somehow in disclosures, that much resources we do not deploy, and the compliance of financial in financial reporting, compliance of disclosure provisions, like the compliance of the standard is done or not done. It is not partially done or something. So disclosure part is also very important. So some paras are there which are dedicated for disclosure purposes. Para 53, 51 to 60. So according to, you have to disclose the information in the financial statement. This is basically annual financial statement, not a quarterly financial reporting. So you have to give like depreciation charge, you have to disclose it separately. Interest expenses on lease liability, you have to show separately under finance cost. Expenditure related to short-term leases, like the leases maturing within 1 year from the reporting date, for which you have taken a short-term, for which you have taken an exemption, so it will not be covered under Ind AS 116. So you have to say, you have to present it separately in the books. Low value asset is similar, what I explained earlier, is laptops and office furniture. Expenditure relating to variable lease payments, like based on the lease terms, change in lease term from after the commencement of the lease. Income from subleasing right of use, like suppose I have taken on lease and further down I have subleased it. So that income, I have the expenditure in the books by way of
हाँ हाँ बरोबर है, बरोबर नहीं बोल देता हूँ. हाँ 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 नहीं वो बरोबर
Madhvi, can you
or if sir, that was for transitional approach that we have already covered. Means
okay,
from
then,
yeah. So
okay, fine. Okay, then we can continue, ma'am.
yeah, we can continue. I'll just quickly go through this. Here, basically the listed company has it is having diversified businesses from they have the company listed company is not a NBFC, but it has a NBFCs as subsidiaries which are into diversified financial activities. They having two floors in commercial complex in South Bombay. They are paying around 40 lakhs of rent per month, and they are they are having the contracts with the group companies that they will be reimbursed certain amounts toward lease, towards other maintenance charges and electricity charges, etc. But it was not a sublease agreement. There was no sublease agreement between the parent company and group company. So will it be called as a lease or not? So here the main thing is in the lease contracts only the occupancy square feet was mentioned. So they will occupy certain 2000 area, and the premises was used having some 30,000 square feet. So this company will occupy 2000 square feet, like that. But they had not specified particular area as such. So the standard says an asset, the ROU asset is typically identified by being explicitly specified in a contract. So this condition was not made here. So there was no sublease. So otherwise sublease means the group company also has to account it as a lessee. Lessor will be the group company. So that accounting was not required in this case. That's what call we had taken after studying the lease agreements. So we'll continue to next slide. In this same case, the listed company, the parent, was paying some towards interest-free refundable security deposit to the landlord. The effective interest rate for a company is 10%. So how the security, this interest-free security deposit should be accounted? So normally, otherwise we account it as per we amortize it. But in this case, if it is for a lease, for operating lease expenditure, then what we do, suppose these 2 crores will account it at present value at 1 point, suppose 5 lakhs. So 50 lakhs difference we account it as a ROU, a right of use, and then it is depreciated in similar way as a lease, as a ROU. So and yeah.
Madhvi, can I request you to take a more 1 or 2 cases, please? You see me suggest.
So here this discount rate will remain unchanged. This is the main thing in this. Like assuming the interest rate as how the lease liability is initially measured. So here lease payments increase in the lease payment is at the LIBOR rate, and discounting it at the unchanged discount rate which is determined at the commencement of lease. Like that it is. So this lease rate is not changed subsequently. Lease payments are changed, but discount rate is remains fixed.
Okay.
So this main thing is there.
Shopping and I have one on this cold storage facility.
Yeah. This basically it is the cold storage. They have the specific cold storage facilities. It is for a month. It is particularly for a period of year. It is used. So the A Limited enters into contract with B Limited, which grants A Limited exclusive right to use specific cold storage facility over a period of time. For 4 months a year. So it is basically like even if you are using it for a certain period of for a year, then whether it will be that the facility you are using by way of paying the lease rent, whether it will be identified lease or not. So in this case, it is identified कि whatever is significant is economics of the use of the asset for the company, because the A Limited has a right to control the asset, and it is using that right to control the asset for the by using the rights are more significant than the economics of the use of the asset. Uh, this contains the lease. The main thrust is the lessee, how it is using it. It is controlling and it is using for the it is more significant to the economics of the use of the asset. So it contains the lease, even though the it is uh, it is a part of the it is for the part of the year. So this is main thing in this, because this is based on different provisions in the. This is a very uh, vast standard. So on different provision, different aspects of the lease, this case study is made.
Okay. Great, Madhvi. Thanks for a wonderful presentation over. And like, you have tried to cover a lot of case studies while letting us on the scenario over.
Yes.
Okay. Can I request Sandeep Bhatt? Sandeep, you are on mute once.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
1 second, Sandeep. I'll just put on. Yeah, Sandeep, welcome. And happy to have you over here.
Thank you.
We'll be happy to have your views on the market trends and the growth story, please.
We have a wonderful series since a long time and in times to come. Wonderful presentation, Sandeep Maheshwari. Can we have the latest on the amendments and developments and on the front, on the market trends, and a deep dive into the order on what is happening in markets and what has happened this week particularly.
Thanks, Manoj. I would like to thank the Think Tank series for giving me the opportunity of sharing my view on the current SEBI case, which has come in the case of the stock 2020 session being held by Hemant Ghai. I have a small presentation on that. So we going to discuss about the FUTP, basically the regulations from SEBI with respect to prohibition of fraudulent and unfair trade practices. So where they have specified certain rules and regulations so as to avoid fraudulent activities happening. From today's perspective, I would like to cover on the SEBI Act, the SEBI FUTP regulations. We have the latest SEBI order talking about the CNBC Awaaz Stock 2020 show, which is hosted by Mr. Hemant Ghai. And then particularly this order against Hemant Ghai covers his mother by the name Shyam Mohini Ghai, as well as Jaya Hemant Ghai, in whose names the particular transactions have been done by Mr. Hemant Ghai as alleged by the regulator. Okay, now how do you look at this scenario? What's currently happening? The markets are booming up, stocks are going up, people are very much influenced by the media. They normally try to take the option of whatever is being said or promoted by the media. That's where SEBI as a regulator becomes very concerned, very vigilant, and would like to understand and assess everything, whatever is happening into the capital markets. SEBI as a law or an act has been formed with the objective of investor protection and trying to see that the capital market is being used more as a wealth generation, exchange, rather than trying to use it for their own use of making profits. Okay, so now talking about the specific sections which have been particularly specified in this current order. SEBI talks about the sections 11.1, 11.4, 11B1 and 11D of the SEBI Act. SEBI as such has been a very old SEBI. Technically, Act was formed in 1956. However, that time probably did not have a lot of teeth to control the capital market scenario. That's where the SEBI 1992 Act was, would say, formed, where the regulator were given powers to take up, would say, cases against all manipulators. And later on, as we find that the SEBI's functioning has been good, SEBI has always been given additional powers by the Ministry of Finance so as to regulate each and every activity. Like even say collective investment schemes have come in. SEBI further has certain regulations for controlling research analysts. It has also come with controlling the investment advisors. So that way, a lot of scenarios happening where SEBI as a regulator has been trying to take a lot of care on that. Well, let's talk about the section 11 of the SEBI Act, which basically talks about the functions of the, SEBI. Now, in that case, I've just quoted the section for the use of the readers, that the 11.1 section technically authorizes SEBI to do anything. Like it says that subject to provisions of this act, it shall be the duty of the board. The board basically means the SEBI board, Stock Securities and Exchange Board, to protect the interest of investors in the securities and to promote the development of and to regulate the securities market by such measures as it thinks fit. So this particular section you will find that is being quoted in each and every order which is being filed by SEBI. Reason being, this is the section which technically gives power to SEBI to do any activity wherever it feels it has not been done in the right manner. Further talking about the section 11.4, it says that the board may, by an order for results to be recorded in writing in the interest of the investors or the security market, take any of the measures, either pending investigation or inquiry or on completion of such investigation as or inquiry. B, that section 11.4b authorizes restraining persons from accessing the securities market and prohibit any person associated with the securities market to buy, sell or deal in securities. D talks about impound and retain the proceeds or securities in respect of any transaction which is under investigation. What I actually want to say out of this particular section is that the board has been given powers that even if they have a certain level of suspicion and they get into the process of investigation, they have powers to restrict any person. If talking about the current case of Hemant Ghai, it is also an ad interim order, indicating that this order has been currently issued on a temporary basis, considering the current scenario, whatever they have known as of now. And the investigation process from SEBI is still on. So SEBI, talking about the powers of directions to levy, 11B authorizes that in the interest of investor orderly development of the securities market, or to prevent the affairs of any intermediary or other person referred to in section 12 being conducted in a manner detrimental to the interest of investors or the securities market. So this section 11B technically talks about that the actions what SEBI is taking is in the interest of the investors and with the reference of long-term market situation. Now I have tried to specify that this particular 11B talks about the various penalties which can be levied. Now, in general, earlier SEBI was not having a lot of teeth, so it was not very well considered by people. But currently, SEBI has been given tremendous power and the right on them to charge penalty on any violation has been also very high. I have quoted like three particular sections. 11B talks about the penalty for default in case of an investment advisor or a research analyst. So where SEBI finds that any investment advisor or a research analyst has not acted in the manner as specified under those regulations, then it can penalize anybody with a fine where the fine should not be less than 1 lakh and where it can go to a maximum of 1 crore. Similarly, under section 15G, there is a penalty for insider trading. Insider trading basically means any trading done on the information which is known only to you and which is not known in public, then it is supposed to be that you have insider information about it, and all the people who are a part of that insider trading activity will can be held responsible. And under that section and the provision, SEBI is allowed to levy a penalty from 10 lakh rupees to 25 crores, and it can even go to 3 times the amount of profits made by the insider trading, whichever is higher. So that is where, like, SEBI has tremendous powers. However, we have not found SEBI levying a lot of penalty as of now, considering the right what they have. But it is still like under discussion, and there are a lot of cases which are going on. Talking about the section 15HA, it talks about the penalty for fraudulent and unfair trade practices. So, if what is it be fraudulent? Fraudulent basically means anything which is done with the intent of defrauding of fraud, with the intention of fraud. And unfair means something which is not done in a fair manner. There, the penalties can go to an extent of 5 lakhs and to a high extent of 25 crores, or 3 times the profit, as I said above. So these are the penalty provisions which are there, which SEBI is authorized to charge on people. Talking further, we even have the 15J section, which basically talks about the quantum of penalty. How can the board take it over? So it has the amount of how is the amount determined? So while adjudging the quantum of penalty under the board shall have due regard to the following factors: the amount of disproportionate gains or unfair advantage, wherever quantifiable, made as a result of the default. So any order which is given by SEBI has to have a proper support of working as to how the particular penalty is being arrived at. Second, the amount of loss caused to an investor or a group of investors as a result of the default. And third, the repetitive nature of the default. So if a person is found to be repeatedly doing something wrong, then SEBI tries to penalize or even try to restrict the person from accessing the capital market for a long time. Talking about the recovery of the amounts, the section 28A of the SEBI Act authorizes SEBI to act like a recovery officer, the way we have in income tax or other laws, where they can use one or more of the modes for recovering the money by attaching the property of the person, by attachment of the bank account of the person, by attachment or sale of the personal property of the person, by arrest of the person, and they even have the right to detain the person. And they can even appoint a receiver for the management of the person's movable or the immovable assets. So this all authorizations or sections authorize SEBI to take various actions as required. Talking about the section 11D, it refers to after causing an inquiry, SEBI can pass an order, and such passing an order can become a case, cease and desist for committing or causing any violation of either person. Further, I am talking about section 12A, which talks about the prohibition of manipulative and deceptive devices, insider trading, and substantial acquisition of securities or controls, where it says that no person shall directly or indirectly employ any device, scheme, or an artifice to defraud in connection with issue or dealing in securities which are listed or proposed to be listed on a recognized office. The reason for I trying to specify this particular section is basically these are the sections which have been actually used in the Hemant Ghai case, where on the basis of these sections, SEBI has tried to penalize Mr. Hemant Ghai. It further says the section E talks about dealing securities while in possession of material or non-public information, or communicate such material or non-public information to any other person in the manner which is in contravention of the provisions of this Act and the rules and regulations made. So I'll further discuss this case as we go into the actual scenario of what happened in Hemant Ghazi case. Now, talking about the SEBI FUTP regulations, we have the regulation 3, which talks about prohibition of certain dealings in the securities market. I think we will just run this a bit faster. Then we have regulation 4, which talks about the prohibition of manipulative, fraudulent, and unfair trade practices, where it says that no person shall indulge in a manipulative, fraudulent, or an unfair trade practice in the securities market. The next section talks about inducing any person for dealing in any securities for artificially inflating, depressing, maintaining, or causing fluctuation in the price of securities, though through any means, including by paying, offering, or agreeing to pay or offer any money or money's worth directly or indirectly to any person. So here what is being talked about is that it is not that manipulation just happens when you are trading on your own. It even happens when you are trying to influence anybody, and with that influence, if you are trying to make your own benefit, then it's not acceptable. The next section talks about disseminating information or advice through any media, whether physical or digital, which the disseminator knows to be false or misleading, and which is designed or likely to influence the decision of investors dealing in the securities. So this section 2K really talks about even any information what you're trying to make aware to people has to be done properly. And third, lastly, knowingly planting false or misleading news which may induce sale or purchase of shares, securities. Now, I come down to the Hemant Ghai case, which is basically there, where it's CNBC Awaaz Stock 2020 show, which is being conducted by Hemant Ghai. As I said, it's just an ab interim ex parte order. Just to give a brief about this particular case, Mr. Hemant Ghai was holding the CNBC Awaaz Stock 2020 show. It was being hosted by him, and it was normally held in the morning from 7:20 to 7:50 a.m. Just to give a brief about Mr. Ghai have been hosting and co-hosting various shows, like Stock 2020 is one what you were talking about, and then it's also used to be a show called as Munafi Ki Tayari, Pehla Sauda, Kamai Ka Adda. So by these actions, Hemant Ghai had actually created a position for himself where he has been having a lot of followers. He has been having more than 1 lakh followers on his Twitter account. And he used to basically do something called as a BTST trade. BTST trade stands for buy today, sell tomorrow. And to avoid that, Hemant Ghai felt that if he does not do the transaction in his own name, but he does in any other family person's name, could be something he would be saved off. It's not like that. When SEBI looks at it, SEBI looks at a person, even covering his family members. So here we have a case where Jaya Hemant Ghai happens to be the spouse for Hemant Ghai, and Shah Mohini Ghai happens to be the mother. What exactly are the main points? I'm just bringing to the notice of all. There were proceeds amounting to 2,95,18,680, which he has been supposed to be earning. Actually, the earning amount would be more than this, but this is on the basis of some 90 trades which have been analyzed by SEBI for the period from January 1 to March 30th. The current status is that the current assessment is still on, and this proceeds amount can actually go up further. Then the happening was there was a placement of order. In the case of placement of order, they were actually trading with a company called as Mars Consulting, which happens to be a franchisee for Motilal Oswal, where they were located in Mehsana, and the company said that they were actually placing orders coming to their office, which actually was wrong, right? Because the residents were of Bombay and the branch where he was trading was in Mehsana. So there have been even a lot of call recordings which have been available with SEBI, where Mr. Guy has actually been talking to the people of Mars Consulting, and what, as I said, there was also similarity of address. So SEBI was actually analyzing the whole scenario in totality, and then finally they have come to a conclusion that Mr. Guy had the advanced information about the recommendation to be made on the show, and that he directly or indirectly used it to his own advantage. Okay, so these were the main points to give a crux of the whole scenario. But I would like to take you further to discuss about this modus operandi or other thing. Now, okay, SEBI, before I go into modus operandi, SEBI had actually tried to understand what issues are they really talking about. It has been various times found that SEBI tries to hold somebody responsible under FUTP or insider trading, but it's not really easy. They really have to do a lot of efforts in getting the right documents. Further, after the order comes in, just to give a regulatory perspective, if anybody is not comfortable with the order, then they have the right to go to SAT, that's the Securities Appellate Tribunal, to file a complaint against SEBI. After that, the current position is that any order which is to be any SAT order, if somebody has to file an appeal, then the opportunity is you want to go directly to the Supreme Court. The current scenario is that you cannot file a case in the High Court against any SAT order. That's how it works. So the issues were that whether repeated patterns of buying shares in the trading account of Jaya Hemant Ghia and Shyama Mohini Ghia and selling the same immediately after the said recommendation. So SEBI has tried to evaluate, assess these four issues. Issue number 2 was whether the aforesaid prima facie pattern of trading amounts violation of the provisions of SEBI Act and the regulations. Issue 3 was whether Hemant Ghai and Jaya Ghai and Shama Ghai are liable for the proceeds of the said prima facie violations. And lastly, is there an urgent direction if any should be issued in the matter? Like as I was saying, SEBI has the right to pass interim orders or take action as required to see that any mishappening which is taking place in the market has to be controlled, and if it is requiring an urgent action, they do take the right for it. Well, just to bring to notice that SEBI had actually started investigating on this position since November last year, but because of their own efforts to comprehend all the situation, bring out a proper scenario, the order has come only on 30th of January. So when we talk about if there's a violation part, these are some points which SEBI has been analyzing, on the basis of which they assess that yes, this person has done a violation over. One was whether there is any price and volume impact of the trading of the shares recommended on the show. Second was whether Mr. Ghai had the advanced information about the recommendation, and if so, whether he directly or indirectly used it to his advantage. Thirdly, whether the trading pattern is a fraudulent scheme or it's an unfair trade practice in terms of the PFUTP regulations. And if so, then what is the role played by all the three people in the scheme and the unfair trade practice? So this way, SEBI has tried to assess every point very systematically and give its judgment. Just for the information of all, I'm trying to put the modus operandi how the Hemant Ghai worked. The show was co-hosted by Hemant Ghai, which gave a buy recommendation of particular script. He, having an advanced information of the aforesaid, a substantial number of shares were bought by him the earlier day in the name of either Jaya or Shaman. Then on the recommendation day, when his show used to be from 7:00 to 7:50, and that used to be on all the technically from Monday to Friday, all the working days when the markets are supposed to be opening at 9:15. So on the recommendation day, the recommendation is made in the show starting at 7:20. So he basically used to say people, oh, this is a good script, it's worth investing, there's a lot of potential, and that way he used to create an interest from the people in that particular script. And then as soon as the market used to open, he used to be first to sell off the shares. He used to sell the shares whatever have been bought by him so as to his advantage. And majority of the time, majority, I'll say all of the time, he has been able to sell the shares at a good profit. So why are this? I just want to bring out that urgent directions were required by SEBI to against this person. One is the directions are preventive in nature. There is a high probability that he might continue to misutilize his position as a host, and using that position could even influence the other people. There was an intermittent threat of continuation of trading activity in furtherance the scheme that has prima facie been found to be violation of the SEBI Act. This would continue to assess and if he's allowed to continue to assess the market, primarily he will not be in the interest of general investors. So here's a situation where no specific person actually has lost money, but it is the general people at large who have actually lost money. Why? Because he's been recommending to people to buy. And we normally used to have a concept called as front running in the stockbroking industry, where when there's an institution who is placing an order, before the institution places the order, the particular dealer or the broker used to first buy the shares in his own name. After that, the institution trade was conducted, and as the institution trade used to be voluminous and huge, the price rise used to happen. As the price used to happen, the broker or the dealer, whoever has bought the shares in his own name before the transaction, before the institution trade, used to sell it off, and they should technically earn money without much risk. So that way, the exchange SEBI has said that your action is actually likely to have a lot of harm to the market. It wanted to maintain a proper playing field for all the people, and any unfair dealing affecting the integrity of the market is actually questioned. So this is basically what I would like to talk about. I understand that there's a lot of hue and cry about it, but one thing remains, it is said, all the what's in TV powers. Going further, what I'm trying to cover now is that I'm trying to have the sections SEBI Act being covered first, then talking about the FUTP. What are the powers? How does it work?
Next time, for sure, I'll come over with something which will convert your mind from a stable or a cautious approach to a such bullish approach I'm talking, and you will love to see you'll love to see my work there. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity. और बहुत से ऐसे lovely छोटे stocks हैं जो आपको बहुत opportunity देंगे. और मैं ITC पे coverage कल निकाल रहा था. I have studied last night. So ITC is for next 3 years like 650 rupees. So see, there is room, और बहुत सी ऐसी weightage है जो undiscovered है. So charts को अगर ऊपर लेके जाना है ना, तो मुझे sector rotation करना है. मुझे ये नहीं देखना है कि कौन peaked out है. वो कुछ 2-3 महीने IT sector pick out होगा, फिर नीचे आएगा, फिर वो भी reversal लेगा. तो नीचे breakout boss अभी आया है. It is lovely breakout. Just study Nifty 500 companies. अभी देखा ही नहीं जिंदगी में. मेरे को 18 साल हो गए, मैंने चार्ट नहीं देखा है.
Manoj, and this is exactly what I was suggesting. The sector analysis is something which is very, very important, because 2 weeks back, I was saying, please watch out. IT might peak out, and this is exactly what has happened actually. IT peak out nahi hua hai, in the sense it has actually gone and
so everything which is going up, it has to correct. So
has to correct, exactly.
Right.
So it was something where it was going into an area which was threading into a zone where it could fall. It has fallen, and that is why I said the things sector wise, if you are able to analyze which sectors will actually be the next sector which will go up, I think that is something which is very, very important.
Indices, sectors, companies, the good, bad, and ugly. There is a strong long-term growth ahead in the IT sector. There is a breakout in the topmost leader. The prices crossed the buyback price, which was a huge supply zone. So there's a very strong growth story ahead. So we discuss about the 5 years bull cycle. which the Nifty shows. Of course, we talked about a strong support. So more sectors, more charts, more indices, more companies. The good, bad, and the ugly. The good will be recognized and rewarded. The ugly will be punished or redecorated so they become good. Let them do a deep dive and appreciate the good work all the participants, panelists, and experts in the think tank conferences, conclaves, webinars, series have been doing since a decade, both in physical mode and digital mode, and they will succeed. And huge growth ahead. We have the best experts on systems. We have the best system experts on assurances. We have the best experts on cyber security also. We have the best system on experts on hacking also. Much more to come. The experts are there with us. All obstacles will be surmounted for the India growth story. Great work, team. Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks everyone. Thank you for support. Thanks
Thank
to
you,
the
Sandeep.
speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Manoj.
Thank you.
Into the Hemant.